Opportunity here for the big fella Morris. Right foot banana, got it.
And Hipwood's got another one. Big moment here. 4 goals, Eric Hipwood.
Great quarter, 5 goal to 1 quarter for the Lions. Neil will get this away. It was kicked before the siren. I reckon it's a goal.
Morris has got Danaher top of the square. Unselfishly little Loman. Goal Brisbane.
And a terrific win for the Brisbane Lions against a side that was very much in form.
It's the Brisbane Lions FanCast with JB and Patrick. Thanks to Hop On Brewery Tours and Crisp Communications. What a bloody good game of football on Friday night that was. Nice little trip down to Melbourne against an informed Dogs. We're coming off the bye. Everything told me that there was no chance of us winning this game, especially given our patchy form. But walked away with a very, very strong performance. Midfield was back. The defence held up. Our forwards, one in particular, all had great games. Just a good game of football to add to the roller coaster of emotions that is season 2024, Patrick. Can we do it again? Well, let's find out this Friday against the Saints. But how good was Friday night?
It was a lot of fun to watch. It was a good game of football. And it was good level of tactical stuff that happened that was like, cool, we're learning a little bit at least. And we did a lot of things right in terms of the skills looked better. Maybe they've been training, who knows? And the goal kicking was better.
Yep.
And the effort was better. And I was like, hey, how good is it to watch a team that looks like they care? It's great.
That's probably the most pleasing thing is the consistent effort across the 4 quarters. Obviously, straight off the bat, the big talking point was who was going to go to Bont, and Jared Berry got that job. And everyone always says he plays his best footy when he plays inside and when he's got a job. And, well, look at that. He went inside, he had a job, and was definitely one of the best on the ground by a long way. You can't keep Bont down forever, obviously, and he slimed forward, kicked 3 goals, and ended up with 19 touches. So if that's your worst game, he's doing all right. But all the plaudits go to Bezz. He definitely got the win in that battle.
Yeah, we'll probably touch on that a little bit more later, but I think just generally, like, when Bontempelli had his impact was kind of far more of a thing than that he had one at all.
Yep.
Having on when you're 40, 50 points down, it's like, who cares? But if he's there kicking his 3 goals in the first quarter, we're in trouble.
Yeah. Dunks had the job on Libba for most of the game as well. It wasn't exactly the hard tag that Berry had, but he played his role on Libba, and Libba was getting overly frustrated with Bezz and his treatment of Bontempelli. And I get it, like, you got to stand up for your teammate and give him a chop out when they're getting that hard tag, and I hope that we do the same this Friday when Marcus Windhanger will no doubt go to Lachie Neale. So I hope we've got a little bit of that, but without crossing the line and giving away stupid free kicks. Should we start with the man himself, Eric Hipwood, who came back from suspension, kicked 6 goals, took contested marks, ended up with 20 touches, and has copped a lot of flack, not just from the listeners of this podcast, but the Brisbane Lions supporter base in general. Shoot through your apologies anytime, blfancast@gmail.com if you like.
It was surely there's an element of irony that it's kind of this corresponding fixture last year that the Heat not so much began, but it kind of reached its first element of critical mass because he'd been back long enough from the ACL to warrant being like, well, what the fuck is this guy doing? I was trying to make you laugh there as you're taking a drink, but it didn't work. And as it were, like, I was at that game last year and I was like, man, that dude runs so much. Running obviously isn't all you need as a contested forward. But, would we be remiss in saying it's his best game he's ever played?
It's definitely up there. It is definitely up there. I know there's a couple of games against Melbourne where he's put himself in the votes and had strong performances. But like everything that people say he doesn't do, he did like tenfold on Friday night. Like the contested marks were a surprise to even the staunchest of Hipwood, backers like us. Like contested
he's taken an Arctic Monkeys first album take on his existence. Whatever people say I am, that's what I'm not.
Yeah.
So
the running, the physical presence, the effort, and obviously the goal kicking, it was all there in one performance. Is he going to back it up on Friday? Probably not. Not to that level anyway. But if nothing else, that's got to be a huge confidence boost for Eric.
Yeah, well, funnily enough, of all the things that happened in that game, my favourite thing was when he took the ground ball and handballed infield to a runner in transition that then kicked over the top to, I don't know who it was, like someone. And we kicked a goal, and I was like, man, that is peak Hipwood. So good.
Yeah.
You know, the goal kicking all aside. Got to say, he loved the one in the goal square that he just kicked rather than going back and doing his whole routine. Last night, watching some moron from Essendon take a mark in the goal square with like 3 minutes to go where they needed 4 goals, and he goes back and takes 25 seconds to kick the ball 2 meters. I'm like, what are you doing? Just put the ball, it's 5 meters. Kick it. It's right there. So I like that from Hipwood.
One thing, I'm not going to say it was disappointing, but I think it was the ball that Logan Morris got in, and both Hipwood and Charlie were like streaming through to goal, and I think it was for Eric's 5th. I thought if he really wanted to, and I understand why he didn't, because, you know, he had to prove it to himself and everyone else more than anything. But if he had to dish that off to Charlie to get Charlie involved in the game a little bit more, that probably would have been, you know, pretty nice. But having said that, like at the end of the day, it was to get Eric back in the game as well. So I'm not going to criticize him too much. I just thought Charlie, like, and we will get to some questions later because now the heat's moved off Eric, it's moved off Cam Rayner. I'm not going to say it's on Charlie, but there's definitely a few questions about Charlie at the moment. So we will get to him a little bit later. But just an all-around great performance from Eric and from Joe as well. Our other small forwards, like Archie, is a little bit sort of missing the last couple of weeks. He's done a few little bits and pieces, but largely anonymous. He had that great game against the Crows, but hasn't really done a huge amount since. But Logan Morris, he's continuing his good form, done some great things. And Kai, how many balls did Kai get hands to with a big flight, not being able to pull it down?
Yeah, it was a lot, but it was kind of funny. Yeah, and there was a couple, you know, it was back-to-back instances where Treloar kind of ran away from him, and he was the first one, he was like, let him go a little bit, and the second one was like, nah, at least I'm putting pressure on. But yeah, Charlie Cameron's an interesting one. Like, they said he was playing further up the ground, you know, he still had the most tackles inside 50 and stuff like that. The thing is like when you're not playing quite as well, and it's easy to paper over the cracks in a win like that with Charlie Cameron and just say like, he contributed where he contributed-ish.
Yeah.
But the rest of it kind of took care of himself. Like, just going back, I think Joe and Eric, like, it was kind of in the first quarter, like Eric's first shot on goal, which was like a 45-meter snap on his right foot, was like as good as he could ever kick that without it being a goal. And I was like, cool, we're in. He didn't kick the wrong side of the ball. And Joe as well, like moving through traffic and, you know, out of the ruck or whatever and hitting the post was like, cool, he's also a bit on. So it was good, at least for those two, that they started with something that like they executed the skill correctly and it didn't go like the wrong way. So I think that does a lot for their confidence, being like the ball hit the shoe right.
That's the bar at this point, which is fine. Yeah,
well, I think I did make mention of it a couple of weeks ago, being like the ball goes through or the ball goes where, like, you're wherever, whereas the ball was kind of going generally as if it was going through the whole time. So, you know, improvements, hey?
It's amazing what I was going to say a week will do, but 2 weeks. Obviously, there's been hopefully some serious chats in that bye week that we spoke about last week, and that, you know, they've managed to pull their fingers out. A lot of the talk from Fags and a lot of the players were like, yeah, we're doing well. You know, we're meeting all the key metrics, if not improving on some of the stuff from last year. We're just not converting up forward, you know, accuracy, or letting ourselves down in sort of periods of match, like 30-minute patch here and there. And I thought in that first quarter, for all the dominance we had, like the same problems were still there. We're getting large numbers of inside 50s, but it's bouncing straight back out, or we're not being able to capitalize on the scoreboard. And in stark contrast, it was like every time the Bulldogs got it forward, it would seemingly end in a goal. And I thought, oh no, Jamari Ugle-Hagen's in for a big one here. I thought Jack Payne ended up with a decent game, but he certainly had some moments where I was a little bit sort of, oh no, this is going to be one of those Jack Payne games. But it evened out. Similar to Liam Jones, I thought Liam Jones did some really good things, but then Eric Hipwood kicked 6 goals on him as well. So it's sort of like, well, how good was his game? But
yeah, I gotta admit, when the Bulldogs were 4 straight from like, what was it, 9 inside 50s,
Yeah.
I was like, no, far out, man.
Yeah.
Like, and particularly one of them being like Trelaw bouncing the ball, like, a bit shades of that guy from the Hawthorn game last week.
Yep.
But like, at least that one was going in anyway, even if it didn't bounce 700 meters in the air. Like, this one was, Trelaw didn't even want to celebrate.
Well, no, he knew he was almost disappointed with it, but he was like, you take the goal when it's there, but he was like not proud of that effort, and he knew he didn't, I guess, deserve a goal. But how cute was it to have Adam Treloar and Josh Dunkley kicking the first two goals of the game?
It was pretty funny, like, because I watched the lead up on Channel 7, because it's actually surprisingly like quite a bit better than the Fox Footy stuff. They show more of the teams running out. It's not just like 4 boneheads at a table, and I didn't realize that. It's amazing what happens when you change channel occasionally. But yeah, it was funny to see all their lead up and stuff. Interesting to note that the modern footballer Adam Treloar said, "I'll try and knock him out," to Josh Dunkley, given his friend Liberatore is 1 concussion away from retirement. Poor choice of words, I got to say, Adam. Adzi.
Surely that was all in jest.
You never know. You're lucky you and I aren't playing against each other anymore, I tell you what.
But I thought Treloar was probably their best on, by and large. Our midfield was just amazing, and the stats were shown at halftime, and we were plus 18 in clearances, just dominating contested possession. It was like the Bulldogs' lowest in however many years, and now the best clearance differential and whatever for us. So it was, for a team that got an absolute bath against Hawthorn, they obviously put the heat on themselves and came out. Like they said, they came out with a mission, with a plan. Like they were super physical. Like we were super physical all over the ground, like intimidating. Pressure was up. And at the end of the game, I think it was Lockie or Bezz that said, we set ourselves for the good midfields. Like, who did they mean? They rattled off Gold Coast, Melbourne and Bulldogs. So like the 3 games we've had decent wins against. So is that saying that they weren't taking the Hawthorn midfield that seriously when they've got Will Day and Warple and Newcomb in there and stuff like that? It's like maybe not. Maybe there's a bit of context behind it, but the midfield certainly on Friday was very different to the one that showed up against the Hawks. That's for sure.
Yeah, it was very well done. We probably got a little bit ahead of ourselves because we didn't do ins and outs.
We didn't. No, we do that. Just eager to talk about the game.
About one of them.
Yeah.
So we talked about one of them. Obviously, we had Big Sticks Brandon Ryan coming out.
Yep.
For Hipwood coming back after suspension. We had Harry Sharp drop from the sub.
Yeah.
And Starcevic come in with Noah Answorth on the bench, which kind of leads to our theory of, Noah or Starcevic are both kind of the lockdown type. I personally can see value in both of them in the team, but that's neither here nor there. I thought Starcevic, with his bald-headedness, had a throwback to 2022 style game.
Yep.
Very assured, very clean, very strong. I thought he looked really good, and it was, a good return game. You're obviously not going to ask for too much from the old Stars, but
I think it was
got a goal assist. He had a couple of good inside 50 kicks and was proactive, I think.
Yeah, I thought he had a great game, especially after however many weeks off, 4 or 5 weeks off. So yeah, you know what you're going to get with Stars. It certainly wasn't his best game by any stretch of the imagination, but it was definitely a solid contribution. But the whole team was full of solid contributions as well. Darcy Wilmot was great again. McKenna is just such a wild card at the moment. Like, he did some really bad things. He did some really good things as well. It's just like those kicks that he tries to bite off. If they work, they work. If they don't, then it's an absolute mare. And just with his kicking style as well, he's prone to like hitting the inside of his boot and it going, at right angles and all that sort of stuff. So in the end, I'm glad he was the one to get subbed out. And I would almost say that, he could be the starting sub next week on Friday and have Noah on the ground instead, because they got some dangerous small forwards, Jack Higgins and Butler and stuff like that. So I guess we'll wait and see, and we'll talk about changes later on in the game. So, but yeah, just fantastic stuff. The midfield was great. Oscar was really, really, really good against Tim English, who is certainly no mug. I thought it was one of his better. He's putting together like a really good sort of 4 or 5 week period.
OE?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's been kind of said, and it was said on comms, but like, man, I've never seen him that angry before.
And that was so good to see because he's the nicest, goofiest bloke going around. And did you catch his interview on Fox after the game?
I saw him on Roaming Brian.
He had just like a full, I want to say 2-3 minute interview with the Fox team afterwards, and honestly, I could listen to Oscar talk all day.
He's almost like a preschool teacher.
Is.
Because BT was asking about his gardening and all sorts of stuff and this sort of thing. He's like, "Oh yeah, mate, like it's all right." Like this big friendly giant character from a Roald Dahl book. But I'll have to check it out.
It's really good, really, really good. And to see him get right in the face of Riley West and like absolutely give it to him is a side we haven't seen from Oscar. But like I said, it sort of played into that physicality, that mission that we came in with. So,
also, just going to point it out, Riley West. He is the beatnik version of Toby Green.
I like Riley West. I really like Riley West. I think he's but I really liked his dad as well. So, but yes, I do agree with you.
He still looks like a beatnik Toby Green, like with his weird beard thing. He's another one for the list of people that just have like generic faces. Jack McRae apparently played. No idea.
Yeah, so
20 touches
briefly, but yeah, no, that's classic Jack McRae. Get lots of the ball, don't do a huge amount with it. So, I mean, like I said, Trullo was easily their best on, and then it sort of dropped quite significantly. I thought, obviously Bont still did bits and pieces, tried to influence the game as much as he could, but definitely Berry had the best of him for sure.
Absolutely, and hey, I got my wish. Cornrow Revel was back.
He was.
We knew we were on for a hot start when that was happening, and then he laid that absolute spear tackle. Or not spear, it wasn't a spear tackle, but he himself was the proverbial spear in the tackle, and it was great. He ended up leading all comers with tackles, so that's good. And he's growing in nicely, signed a new contract. We'll talk about other contracts later on, I'm sure. But yeah, I think overall, like, there wasn't too many that dragged, and I think it would be kind of cynical to assume that when you're playing a team like the Bulldogs that actually have like some quite good top end talent, that you're not going to have some of their players that play quite well.
Yeah.
Bit like my sort of hypothesis with the 4-quarter performance. I would call that a 4-quarter performance where we didn't win every quarter. We lost the third by a bloody point, didn't we?
Yeah.
And I just think against good teams, you're not going to win every quarter. And similarly, when you're playing against good teams, matchups are going to allow other players to do well, and you're not going to beat every single player across the board. You can try. It's not always going to happen, is it?
Just to bring us back down to earth for a second, I think that is because Harris had a really good game as well, quite influential. If they have Norton and or Darcy in that team as well, I think it certainly affects Harris's output. And you throw Waitman in there as well. So, like I said last week, we're getting the Bulldogs at their most vulnerable. So I think that certainly played into it. But I think with the intent and the physicality and everything that we showed, I think we would have won that game anyway. But I think it would have been a little bit closer for sure had they had a couple of those players in and out. So worth noting if and when we come up against the Bulldogs again, we're going to have to prepare for that. But let's just enjoy the win as it was, because it was absolutely fantastic. And then we look on to the Saints on Friday, which, if it's anything like Saturday night's game, I'm not excited for it at all, because that Saints versus Suns game at Marvel, where you're meant to be able to score fairly freely, could be one of the worst games of footy I've ever seen in my life. Yeah,
thankfully I missed that one. But I did accidentally watch the KO mini. I was trying to watch the really short ones because I heard there was some weird controversial stuff, at the end of some of the games. I didn't really look too much into it. So then I watched all of the like little highlights and accidentally clicked the 20-minuter. And I was like, man, this game, the highlights must be pretty dire if they're showing, I think they showed 8 behinds.
Yeah. It was
and like guys taking a mark, taking their full 30 seconds to shoot a point. I'm like, man, these highlights are drab.
Yep.
Absolutely drab.
Well, imagine that for, 2+ hours.
No. I refuse.
Well, we could be in for Friday. If we get sucked into playing a bullshit Ross Lyon game, then that's what we're in for, and I really hope that we can do something about that, because that was absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we'll be all right. Remiss to say.
Yeah. Hope so. Hey, all right, let's get into some votes for Hop on Brewery Tours. Hop on brewerytours.com.au. Book yourself a half or full day tour with Matt and Joss, who are just about to come back from a little trip to Korea, if you don't mind. Having lots of fun. And then they'll be back in the van to take you around to some of the best breweries across the Gold Coast and Brisbane. All right, for me, Eric Hipwood gets the 3 easily. His best game probably ever for the club. Did absolutely everything. The running, the intent, even when he didn't take a contested mark, of which there were many, he brought it to ground. So an all-around, just like basically perfect game from Rick. 2, hard to go past Lachie Neale, even though I have a sneaking suspicion that you will. 38 touches, 2 goals, 6 marks, 10 clearances. It's one of those Lachie Neale games where he just polls votes and will probably, in the eyes of the umpires, get the 3 as well. And that goal from, on the angle, the way he works the ball, sort of drifted across straight through. That was nice from Chock. And the 1 big O, for the reasons I said before. Just he's putting together some really good footy. Took it to one of the best ruckmans in the competition. He was physical. Got 6 or so clearances himself. Great game from Big Oe.
Yeah, that's all very much following a similar song. We talked about it because I wanted to say, I'm sorry, Lachie Neale, but 38 disposals, 2 goals, he's not getting a vote for me. And I'm it's not because he didn't have a good game, but it's there were other things that happened in that game, like the Hipwood anomaly, and the other 2 that I'll give votes for, that were just they were kind of they fixed some scars and some things that I think were really kind of largely more important in terms of the context of the game. I think if Lachie Neale probably doesn't have that game, we probably still win.
Yep.
But if Berry doesn't hold Bont early, there's a good chance that they might. So that's kind of the context of going, we've seen Bont rip us apart and we've seen Tim English have big games in the ruck. So O's getting my 1.
Yep.
Berry's getting my 2. And I think Berry's unlucky not to get the 3. And Hipwood with the 3. But I'm sorry, Lachie Neale. A fantastic game, but just contextually, these other people were more important for me.
I do agree. And Bezz was very unlucky to get a vote from me. The only reason he didn't is because Bont had a pretty big second half, kicked 3 goals. So, but as you said, it was sort of the damage was done, and he could probably afford to then. But I couldn't, in all good conscience, ignore Lockie's game. So I'm glad you ended up giving Bezz the vote. So I think it's going to even out towards the end of it. And I'll be very interested to see how the coaches' votes come out today, because I think, they've got a bit more freedom and more numbers to play with. So I'll be interested to see what Fags and Bevo land on at the end of this. So I think
probably end up with Jack McRae getting 8 votes or some bullshit.
I think that they'll come out today at some point as well. So amazing stuff. Let's quickly, you touched on it just before, we'll have a chat about those contracts. So we spoke about it last week, and I said, it's just a matter of time now. It's merely a formality that Huey's going to sign that deal. And then it came out a few hours later on the Monday that he had in fact signed a 7-year, close to $1 million a season deal. So you can sort of estimate how much that is, maybe 800,000-900,000 plus, plus bonuses for whatever he meets, depending on where he finishes in best and fairest, or if he makes all Australians, all that sort of stuff. So that's good. That's that's a really good deal. I feel obviously the long-term deals, they can cause quite a bit of controversy, and a lot of people aren't big fans of it. Fags even came out and said that the AFL needs to come in and intervene when it comes to long-term contracts, which I thought was a bit strange to do that very soon after giving Hugh a 7-year deal. It's sort of saying, well, do you regret giving him this deal, Fags?
No, well, I think that was more in reference to players retiring given potential new percussion protocol retirements, was it not? The idea that you give someone, if they're going to put in let's say a concussion passport, and you go, well, he's had 3 concussions, so he's now can't play. I think that's probably more what he's getting at in terms of you sign a guy on under good faith, particularly if it's a situation where the clubs don't know how many concussions that player's got. That could be where the ticking off point is. But just to dispel a little bit of potential misinformation, because it's funny. I think it was start of the year, or it might even have been the start of last year or whatever, where I was like, I don't know anything about what contracts mean or money values or whatever, but from all the research and extra work that I've put in, his contract is like, when you hear close to $1 million, you think like marquee players.
Yep.
And I think with the new like collective,
not with the
whatever.
new CBA. I think that's by the time he's 4 or 5 years into that deal, like it's
going to start looking pretty good, I reckon.
And especially when Tasmania is coming into the competition as well, to have players like that locked away, like that's perfect.
Yeah. So I he took the words out of my mouth. So it's like it looks, because it's, the $1 million amount is listed. That's not actually going to be too far from the normal. It's going to be for an above average player is going to be earning close to or even $1 million. And to me, Hugh McCluggage is a very much an above average player with the potential to be like a pretty like a game breaking player. So for me, that is a great deal.
Yeah.
The longevity,
sure.
I think it puts him in line to, if the club wants to continue down the co-captains route, for him and Harris to be the co-captains, I think that kind of lays that foundation. When are they gonna be re-signing Jared Berry? I
think that'll be similar to last week. I think that'll be a formality at this point. Like, even Fags is like, oh yeah, that's going to happen soon. I think now that Hugh signed on, that's just extra incentive to Bezz to stick around.
Also with Tom up the road in Gold Coast as well. So there's not.
Yeah. Now the one, like, he's obviously I think it was reported last week that Essendon's having a bit of a sniff around Bezz. So maybe, but I think if he's smart enough, will wait until Will Ashcroft comes back to see how that affects his inside mid minutes, because that may be a sticking point for Bezz. Like, if because he's getting inside time now, and that might be like enough for him to go, oh yeah, I'm finally getting some inside time. Like, of course I want to stay if this is going to be my future. But if Ashcroft comes back and then suddenly Bezz is back out to a wing, not playing, his best footy in the middle, it might be enough for him to go, okay, well, maybe my future's not in the middle here at the Lions as well, especially with Levi coming into the team next year as well, and who knows what sort of role he'll have. So we may wait until Ashcroft comes back to see how that affects Bezz's game, but at this stage it looks like he's basically due to sign a contract. I think it's a 4-year at this stage, which is good as well. That'll take him to free agency. It'll take him about to when Tasmania comes in, and then he might look around at that stage. So it probably just means that the Dev Robs of the world is more likely than unlikely to, if not next year when their contract runs out, maybe even the end of this year, go, hey,
a trade bait.
Yeah, and you know what, that's fair. Like,
I think that's probably comes as no surprise to anybody, really.
Yeah, and hopefully it's not the case, because I really like Dev, and I hope he does get some games this year, but it's looking less and less likely. It's just, and it's through no fault of his own. It's just a tough midfield to crack into.
It's the only part of the field that we haven't really had
sort
of dire injuries. So, he's good to have around just in case, because you know what the alternative is, or I know what the alternative is, and I don't want to talk about it. So,
well, we're going to when we talk about the twos.
Yes, but let's talk about Brucey first.
Okay, yeah, he's got
Speaking of
yeah. So he was
he got himself a new deal.
Yeah, so he signed a Cat B or maybe Cat A. He's a rookie contract, so he's playing as a rookie at the moment. I don't know if the extension is an extension of the rookie contract or if it moves him into the senior list. Maybe we'll have to wait until the end of the year to find out exactly what the go is there. But yeah, fantastic news for Bruce, we all know the story. He's toiled away playing VFL for 5-6 years. He sort of had some half promises from Richmond of, yeah, we'll sign you, and then it never eventuated. Finally gets a crack at it, gets some games in his first year, and has got himself an extension, albeit, a year, but, great story, and very quickly becoming a lot of people's favourite player at the Lions.
You know who else was getting 1-year contracts year after year?
Yes.
The Frog.
Yes.
And look where the Frog is now, almost, So, yeah, good for him, and happy for that. All right, tell me about the twos.
The twos, really, really good. Like, this is 3 trips to Melbourne in 4 weeks against decent, like, genuine top 4 teams in Casey, Box Hill, and now Footscray, who I think they were top of the ladder undefeated. I think they won 21 of the last 22 or something, Footscray. And the Lions never looked like losing it. It came close in the end, but Footscray kicked a couple of junk time goals, but our twos were phenomenal. And I'm going to say it, Jared Lyons has put together 2 really, really good weeks, not just in the amount of ball he's getting. Last week I said he played basically as a pseudo full forward, kicked 4 goals. More midfield time this week, so ended up with 9 clearances, 5 tackles, and still hit the scoreboard with 32 touches and 3 goals won. So, yeah, I mean, he's going to keep doing that. Now he's adding serious scoreboard impact to his game as well. It's like there's not much more he can do to knock down the door of getting a game in the seniors. And look, we may see him as the sub in the next couple of weeks, depending on how things go. Jackson Pryor, another solid game, probably another one who's likely to leave at the end of this year or next year as well, I would say, because they're too good for VFL, these players, but obviously, and they're, Jared Lyons is a starting midfielder in 15, 16 AFL teams, basically. There's probably only a couple with really solid midfields that he's not, including
I'll for homework, I'll do a list of all the teams that he wouldn't make.
Okay. Something tells me it's going to be close to 18.
No, I mean, I whilst I agree with the idea of he's too good for VFL, not good enough for AFL, I mean that I feel like that's on a general level. Just because I think that he is like a relic of an old game style.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. And he hasn't worked on the transitional run. So, you look at the amount of ground Lachie Neale covers versus how much he used to cover, let's say even 3 years ago. Yeah. And it's remarkably different. So that's where Jared Lyons has fallen afoul, and that's where he's been exposed in AFL games for us.
Yep.
When's the last time he's had a great game in the AFL?
Yeah, no, you're right.
I know he hasn't had a lot of them, but and I just think, if Noah Ransworth is to be the sub for the remainder of the year, I'm taking that because he actually comes on and he's got that kind of like almost Dane Zorko energy, the ability to just come on and like be immediately part of what's going on. So
sort of run amok.
I feel like it would be a little bit stiff on the nose.
I'm still a little bit. I still wish Fags utilised the sub a bit better. Like it's very rarely will he pull the trigger on the sub before 3/4 time, or even like 10 minutes to go. And I get it, but then flashing back to when we played Adelaide and Nixie pulled the trigger on the sub at half time. Now, people say it backfired because Worrell went down 2 minutes into the second half of, with a broken wrist or whatever it was. And they're like, oh no, we've got no sub. But I would rather Fags take the gamble, especially if things aren't necessarily going our way, and like trying to inject someone and get them into the game a little bit more and give them enough time to sort of impact the game, rather than like, oh, here's 10 minutes to the end of the game. I know you're not warm. You don't know the pace of the game. You don't know the feel of the game or the rhythm of it, but here you go. And then, Shadow Brain, he was sort of hung out to dry a little bit in those 2 games. He was sub and then dropped back down. Same thing with Sharpie last
Sharpie,
game. Yeah. And sticking on the twos, Sharpie had an okay game. It's just his disposal that is letting him down a little bit more. Obviously, we know he can cover the ground and run, but it's his disposal. But I guess the talking point of the twos is probably those mid-season draftees that we got in. So Will McLaughlin, great game, 2 goals, including one very nice one for his first. Darcy Craven was all right, 10 touches and a goal, which is about what you want from a small forward. But pick of the bunch.
The smallest of forwards.
Pick of the bunch, and by a long way.
Beacon.
The beacon of hope, mate. Honestly, he looked like he'd played 200 games, and obviously he'd played 50 games in the Sandful, but the way he came in, his intercept marking was amazing. His use by foot was just superb. Ended up with 22 touches, 6 marks, 2 tackles, and a clearance.
He played on halfback?
Played off halfback, but really pushed forward, like a really attacking sort of halfbacker.
So are we doing what everyone's like? Are we bringing him in for McKenna?
Honestly, I know it's only 1 game, but yes.
I can't do it on good faith because I have not seen this person.
Yeah.
So I'll leave that into your capable hands.
No,
but,
I think you can't just have one game in the VFL and go, yeah, you're straight back in. I think they're going to have a handful of games of solid performances before they're even a thought at match committee. But
there is a weird thing though with Sandville versus VFL, where Sandville's almost an element of it's its own weird standard unto itself. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but I'd almost say the Sandville can sometimes be a higher standard than actual VFL.
Yeah, okay.
Because it kind of operates on its own weird South Australian shit.
Sure.
Where they've only got 2 teams. There's not a lot. There would surely be people in South Australia who either want to play for Adelaide or Port Adelaide, but they don't want to travel.
Yeah.
So they're happy to play for Sandville teams. Good players that would probably play AFL and do quite well at it, that don't want to go and play for Perth or whatever. Whereas in Victoria, you've got an element of quite, the chances of getting onto a Victorian list is quite high. So you're almost willing to risk the interstateness of it all.
Yeah.
Plus, then you can also just force a trade back anyway.
That's true.
So yeah, the VFL kind of has its own, some of the VFL stuff is amazing. Grand final crowds are 50,000 and stuff. It's just pretty unheard of. So Sandville's good. My dad used to play back in the day. So, or, 70s or whatever. What an idiot.
But honestly, Beacon, one to keep an eye out for, and hopefully we can keep him on the list for next year, because I think Will McLaughlin got a lengthier contract. I think he got 18 months, whereas the other two, Beacon and Craven, only got the 6-monthers. So, and like I said, it's only one performance. He may shit the bed next week, and we'll have to readjust our lenses. But as good a performance as you could hope for a first game. So definitely.
What numbers were they wearing?
Oh, fucking out in the 50s. All right, Will McLaughlin 42, Beacon 47, and
okay, not exactly classics, are they? And
Craven had the 50.
Oh no. All right, fair enough. Yeah, there's no good player that's played in number 50. It's Ben Brown or the prisoner, Mullion Pickett. So, all right, well, we need to work on that because those are some garbage numbers.
Well, mate, I'm sure they don't give a shit. They're just happy to be, one step closer to playing on an AFL list. And, both those guys, McLaughlin and Beacon, both fantastic. And look, if things keep going the way they are, if they keep performing well in the twos and, say Cal Archie is not necessarily impacting as much as we know he can, then maybe there's a potential for a bit of a run for Will McLaughlin there. If there's another injury down halfback, then I think Luke Beacon's certainly put himself ahead of Jackson Pryor and Jimmy Madden and stuff at this point.
I forgot Jimmy Madden existed.
Once again, one game, I should probably keep a lid on it, but I was very impressed, obviously, with what Beacon had to say. So we'll see. We'll
would
keep.
Would you say the Beacons are lit?
Sure, I would say that.
Yeah.
All right.
Beacons are lit.
Now that we've had a quick look at the twos, let's forecast any changes for the team. And it's one of those games where it's hard to see many or any after a pretty comprehensive performance. So I doubt there's going to be any, if I'm perfectly honest. Maybe McKenna, if Fags is unhappy with the way he's been performing, there might be a change to the sub. So there may be that sub change, that Answorth gets a full game, and perhaps McKenna goes to the bench. I'm not sure, but like I said, I think it'll be an unchanged lineup.
I don't think we're going to see any changes. No. The Beacon of Hope will remain a beacon for now, rather than a utilised light source. That's all we got.
Yeah, basically. It's not like the Saints have a Bontempelli that Berry or Dunkley has to go to. I think even Jack Steele is probably not exactly as damaging as he once was. So there's no one I'm really worried about in that St Kilda midfield. So I think it'll just be a head-to-head type of operation. The only thing that I definitely see happening, because the Bulldogs didn't do it and we saw what happened, Lockie Neal absolutely ran right. But odds are $1.01 that Windhager will go to Lachie Neale on Friday night after the job he did on the weekend against Touk Miller. So that's something to look out for, and we're going to have to get the Tom Liberatores of our team to step in and stand up for Chock.
Yeah, they generally don't. But we want them to, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, Owi's got a chance to back it up as well, playing on Rowan Marshall, who's a very good ruckman.
Yep.
Probably a slightly different style, a bit smoother.
Bit more physical as well. Bigger frame on Rowan Marshall. So that'll be another test for Oscar, which I'm looking forward to.
It's kind of it's weird. Like the Marshall's kind of more of the kind of the old Grundy style, whereas Tim English is more of that awkward kind of gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Owie kind of tends to prefer that kind of languid, weird, disproportionate sized madness. So Marshall could have a good one. I don't know. Hopefully not.
Max King has been known to get a hold of Harris in the past. He tends to struggle against those sort of rangier, more athletic that really get their hands out and take the ball at, as they say, at their highest point type of operators. So it'll be interesting to see if Harris gets the job on Max King, or if Payne gets that job. I think it'll probably start with Payne, and if he's telling you, there might be a bit of a change, but not that the ball is getting into Max King or any of their forwards at a rate of knots. Yeah, it's just honestly St Kilda. If the AFL is going to intervene with anything, it should be with the way Ross Lyon coaches a football team.
Yeah, I've said a fair bit about Ross Lyon in the past year and a bit.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say anything.
Fair enough.
But one thing I say, with being getting held of, whatever. With one of the Kings getting a hold of Harris, you kind of wonder, dude, you play against them 4 times. Figure it out.
Yeah.
It's the most. So, come on, Harris, sort it out. They're clones of one another.
They are. And, they've got Wilkie, and actually Dougal Howard went off with a hamstring on the weekend, so maybe he won't be backing it up. It looked like a pretty nasty one. So, they got Wilkie down there.
He's not coming back from a hamstring. No chance. He's not Cal Archie or whatever. Not a chance. Seb Ross from the beginning.
Sure.
Seb Ross is their Jared Lyons. Don't want to say that. It sounds a bit mean.
So Eric or Joe, I don't know that they're going to have the same impact. Like I said at the start, is Eric going to be able to back that up? Probably not. Amazing if he could. Amazing if he just came out and blitzed it with that. He obviously came out with a bit of a chip on his shoulder, having the suspension, having 2 weeks off by the time. And you'd be silly to think he hasn't heard some of the outside noise, and maybe there's been a bit of a kick up the arse from the coaching staff in that time off as well to say, hey, we need you to lift. So if he can keep that momentum going, that would be fucking fantastic.
Yeah, his interview after the game was quite funny. He just was sort of like, yeah, it's all right. Team played well. I'd just try. It's like, you sure do, buddy. You sure do. And he looked like it looked like a pre-game interview as well. Not a bead of sweat on his weird alien body.
That's true.
I have a question about Hugh McCluggage, and it's not necessarily to you. It's to people that may know.
Yeah.
And it might be considered prying. Does he have any hobbies?
Don't know.
Because you hear, particularly when you've watched Roaming Brian once, and he knows everything about everyone. You're like, what does Hugh McCluggage do?
I think, like a lot of the Lions boys, he's pretty keen on his golf.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I know. He often refers to being from Warrnambool and stuff, like bit of farming gear back there. So other than that, no, he's quite elusive, Huey, and that's fine. Happy for that. We should get into some questions because we have got a few, thanks to Chris Communications, chriscoms.co. Get yourself your free Brisbane FanCast sticker. You can also get all sorts of marketing from the team at Crisp Communications, whether it be digital marketing, some flyers, email stuff. You got your own podcast. Chris Coms will sort you out, chriscoms.co. All right, let's get into some questions. First one is coming from Ziggy. Now, this is an audio question, so I'll make sure I turn all that gear up, and hopefully this comes through nice and loud and clear.
G'day, boys. It's Ziggy here. I listened to the Footy with Broden Kelly podcast, and Tom, one of the hosts on there, made sort of this observation that the halfback role is one of the easier roles in footy, and I thought that was kind of really interesting. He sort of pointed out, the Harry Sheezels and Nick Dacoses of the world, not to like take away from how good those players are and obviously are going to be, but just in that role, it's like that accumulator kind of position, and it's sort of been proven over the last however many seasons that that's the case. And just in terms of Zorko's year off halfback, how valid do you think that is, and do you think that that's why like our coaching staff have moved him there? Obviously, there's that creativity off halfback that he has by foot, with the lack of like Coleman. But yeah, I just thought I'd like to hear your opinion. And yeah, love the pod. Keep up the good work. Yeah, good win. Go Lions.
Lovely. Thanks for the shout out there, Ziggy. And the shout out to The Footy with Broden Kelly as well. One of the great podcasts. Very funny stuff.
Lovely. Yeah, I lovely to hear from Ziggy.
Yeah. Now, thoughts
One of the names I remember purely from a David Bowie point of view. So here we are.
100%. And I wonder if that was the inspiration behind his name itself. Anyway, that's not what
it's
he
probably
asked.
just like, it's actually just my name.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, like it's often said that the halfback is the easiest position on the ground to play. Like Gary Lyon is a big one for that as well. And people that make the switch down there that have often played a lot of midfield time, they often say like, oh yeah, you can see the whole game in front of you, you can see it unfolding, and you sort of get a better idea of where the ball's going to go, and you have the ability, if you've got a good enough footy IQ, to rack up plenty of possessions as well. Now, I'd say at the start of the year, Zorko wasn't tipped to line up there. I'm sure he would have had minutes along the halfback line, but I think Coleman going down sort of forced the hand. I mean, we tried Jared Berry first of all, which was strange, before going, yeah, Zorko's the man, because of exactly what he said, his creativity off the halfback, his ball use. It's often been said that he makes, quick decisions and quite often the right decisions, and he's generally got the skills to nail the kick. Not always, but more often than not, he'll hit his targets. He's still reasonably fit, got a fair amount of run in him, and I think he's at that age where, Hodgie did it, Sam Mitchell did it as well at the Hawks. Like, once players get to a certain age and they move down that halfback line, they can still extend their careers by a couple of years and impact games that way. So I think it's been really good by and large, especially with Coleman out.
Yeah, it's a kind of like, I didn't hear that segment because I've not heard any of those segments, but here we are. But regarding the position in a general sense, I think calling it the easiest position in footy is probably valid in the sense that as long as your team is structured in that way, because you'll tend to find that, particularly with Dacos or Sheezel, a little bit different to the way that Zorko's doing it. Zorko isn't making up the seventh man in like a midfield. Yeah, he's not coming in as an extra for the stoppage, kind of unaccounted. So Zorko's doing it a little bit differently. But and this is, I sort of said earlier on, like, I wouldn't be surprised to see Levi Ashcroft potentially play there next year to do kind of what Dacos and Sheezel did in terms of being that plus one. But what you need in order for that to kind of work is, firstly, you need to have like a really high front half pressure game to basically enable you not to get killed on transition coming the other way. So if you've got an extra committing to the contest and he's leaving someone out the back, you can be in trouble. So what that also means is you need someone like Harris Andrews or a Darcy Moore or that sort of a thing to be able to kind of kill those contests and almost have a 2-on-1 against you. So I guess the long and short of it is we're not doing it in the same way to the Dacos and Sheezel type. I'd even throw Jack Sinclair in like that. Where they are making up that extra number. We don't do it quite in the same way, but if we did, I think we'd do it really well.
Sure.
What do you reckon?
Yeah, no, it's hard to disagree with any of that. But as you said, sort of Zorko isn't that midfielder that's sort of making up the numbers down back. He's, I guess, at this stage, the designated halfback that we've got.
Yeah, and, whilst I do think that it kind of possibly is fudging his numbers a little bit, and there have been times where it does kind of make me absolutely like cringe. I think largely it's been fine.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a long-term solution. I don't think If Kadeen Coleman is fine, I don't think Zorko plays. So yeah, I think it does distort his numbers, but it's been a good fit for this year.
Yeah, no, I certainly agree with that. And if Coleman was right, then who knows what sort of a year Zorko would be having at this stage. As we've said, he's probably leading, if not top 3 in our BNF at the moment. So, yeah. All right. Here's an interesting question I was looking forward to discussing. This one's coming from Twitter, live. Is just the handle there.
Oh, right. Okay.
Where does Lachie Neale rank in the all-time Lions, Bears, and Fitzroy players? Jules Brownlow seems like week in, week out, he's outstanding. It's a tough one, isn't it?
It's a team game. Like,
correct.
Yeah, it's like I'd put him above any of the players. So, of all the players that have not had a premiership, he's top.
Yep.
But I'd put him above some shithouse players that have had one flag.
I think,
but I don't think he beats any that have gotten 2.
Or I think, like if you're just looking at that 01 to 03 team, I think he makes the starting midfield. I think our starting midfield would be Voss, Black, and Neale. So make of that what you will. I don't think he's going to go down better than Vossi or Blackie, and maybe that's the fact that he spent a good portion of time at Freo as well. If he was just a sole Lions player, that definitely adds credits to the bank. But I think it puts him ahead of, say, Luke Power or maybe Nigel Lappin. Different roles, obviously. But I think that in terms of just a midfield, that is a pretty well-balanced midfield with 4 Brownlows in it.
Bit one pace for mine.
Yeah. Well, yeah, true. But
I'm cynical, don't worry.
I think he's definitely up there.
Yeah, for sure. I think if we win a flag, it immediately elevates him to that kind of like top tier status. But I think it's hard when you got players that have won 2 flags. You sort of like the game's about winning premierships, and I understand that's not necessarily some people's fault.
Yeah.
But I put him definitely well ahead of guys like Des Headland or like even Ash McGrath or Aaron Shatter, guys that have won 1 flag and have just been there. But there's an aura for premierships. So it's like if you've won 2, I think that dictates that you're on another level.
Yeah. 2 Brownlows though is also fairly handy. Here's another sidebar for you in terms of dual Brownlow medalists in recent history. So Judd,
Goods,
Fife, Goods,
Ablett.
Goods. Where do you rank him in amongst all those? Because I think he's probably the bottom of that list.
I was going to say that. I thought it felt mean.
No, it does feel... There's nothing to take away from... And Live is right. Week in, week out, he is outstanding. He is an amazingly consistent player.
Let's stretch it back a little bit further and go Robert Harvey.
See, like...
Because I'd probably... maybe I don't... Maybe I'm a bit weird, but I'd probably put him like ahead of Robert Harvey, but below the others.
Yeah, I think that's about as high as he's getting on that list. And it's...
But then the argument as well is that if like he probably should have won 3 Brownlow medals, which is insane.
Well, true, but if you're using that logic, he probably shouldn't have won last year. He should have won the year before.
Yeah.
So,
but it wasn't. Yeah, I guess it was because old mate got injured or whatever. But yeah, maybe it's just indicative that the Brownlow is kind of a bit. It's a Boffin's game for numbers now.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an element of that, but you look at those other dual Brownlow medalists. I think Lockie's probably been more consistent than Fife, maybe, over a longer period of time. But just in terms of, like, outstanding...
Yeah, longevity, I think. I actually forgot about Fife because I think I talked over you.
Yeah.
I'd put him possibly... Like, Fife at his best is better than Lachie Neale at his best.
Yeah.
But Fife, I don't know. Fife did drag them to a grand final and they didn't win, so I don't know. Maybe I'd put him ahead of Fife, but I'd put him below Goods,
Judd,
Ablett,
yeah.
Judd.
And that's, you know what, it's fair company to be keeping and be in the same conversation as, even if you are the bottom of that list, it's fucking a lot better than most. So,
Yeah.
All
yeah.
right.
How's about that Fremantle team, though, having like 2 dual Brownlow medalists? Like,
it's crazy.
projecting forward, it's pretty wild.
Brad on Twitter, whoever helped Harry Mackay with his goal kicking and mental battle needs to come and help Charlie out. It's getting concerning how average he's been this year. And to back that up, we had another question come through. This one, anonymous. So,
Do you have a voice vocoder over his...
No, just didn't offer any sort of indication of who he might be. But thanks for getting involved. We always love people that jump in on our SpeakPipe page.
Hey, Brisbane Lions FanCast. Long-time listener, first-time sender. I'm just curious as to what you think the coaching staff, the team, or Charlie Cameron himself can do to implement himself more in the game and be a little bit more effective with the ball. Cheers.
Well, that's a question.
Thank you, Julian Assange, all the way from the embassy over there. What can Charlie Cameron do? What can the coaches do?
It's a tough
Stick
one, isn't
with
it?
it.
That's basically what you can do, because it's not... And I wonder if... I think the general makeup of the forward line is impacting the way he's playing his footy. Like that third tall, it was Gardner and now it's Logan Morris. Just the general structure of the forward line, maybe that's having an impact on the way he's affecting games. And not just him, like Zach Bailey, Cam Rayner, Archie the last few weeks as well. They're not playing bad footy, but they're certainly not impacting games the way we know they can and have. And obviously Charlie is just like, because he was so good at impacting games and quite often kicked bags of goals, and he's a marquee player. Like, kids come along and watch Charlie Cameron play footy, and to have him not do that week in, week out is a little bit strange. So the drop off in form has been quite dramatic when it comes to Chuck. What can he do? Yeah, not much more.
I actually think that Charlie's struggling from the lack of Link McCarthy more than anyone.
Yeah.
Just in terms of Link McCarthy playing this like selfless, creating space kind of role. There were a few times, like before we sort of broke the game open, I think there were a few times where, Eric was like telling Archie to like get out, and like there was just a few people in the way and that sort of thing. And Hipwood made mention of the talls not kind of cutting each other off, but he didn't say the smalls, so I don't know if that's guilt by omission.
Yeah.
But
and maybe it's the fact
that
Kai Lohman coming in doesn't, like, he's still young in his career and still looking to make an impact himself, so maybe he's not playing that selfless role as well as Link can. Yep. So maybe there's an element of that as well. But it's not to say that it's not all on Charlie, but there's definitely been a few changes in that forward line that is maybe impacting the way he's playing.
Plus, I think he's off like drawing a lot more focus as well, and he should be really, and he probably has been. But
yeah,
I think the idea of that lockdown defender on a small is like, it's kind of every team has one now to go to do that.
Yeah,
whereas maybe they didn't back in the day.
And
a couple of years ago,
Taylor Dury's played quite well on Charlie the last few meetings, and he did another great job on him on the weekend. All right, here's a couple of questions that we're going to lump together from JC. Hoping last night, this was sent on Saturday, so hoping Friday night sealed it for Berry. He goes to centre bounces and pushes Klug outside most of the time. What are your thoughts on that? We spoke about this last week. And Ross, with Berry as a free agent and playing so well in the centre, do you think if Fags moves him back to the wing, he might look to leave? And we have sort of touched on that a little bit as well. So I guess it centres around Berry playing his best footy in the middle. And I guess two opposing thoughts there is like, all right, do we keep him in the middle and maybe look to play McCluggage a bit more outside? Or, if he's looking to leave, is he going to go back out to the wing?
Yeah.
It's just a balancing act, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it was interesting, like, because we did talk about this last week in terms of, like, McCluggage was an All-Australian squad member as a wingman before wingmen were selected. So make of that what you will. I think fucking Jack McRae was on the wing one of those years.
That's right.
So you can see why I don't like him. But yeah, so if McCluggage, because McCluggage is a very adept winger and he moves well and he's got tackle breaking kind of going for him now. I thought he looked a lot sharper. Not that he hasn't looked sharp, but I thought he looked good. McCluggage could also be one to go behind the ball, almost like a Nigel Lappin type. So yeah, I'd be sticking with Berry in the midfield, but I think you called it with wait until Ashcroft comes back to sort of see what your lot in life is. So
Yeah, because that's going to really that's going to shake things up in the middle more than anything, I think, because we're talking about, you know, McCluggage and Berry in the middle, and you know who's going out there, but wait until you throw little Will in the mix as well to see just what impact that's going to have. All right, here's two questions. One from Bill that simply says, "Are we back?" And Vince says, "Do we need to go back to back before we're back?"
yes, to both simultaneously.
Well, here is great, like fantastic performance on Friday, and it reminded us all what the Lions are capable of when they put it all together and play physical footy, put the pressure up, get their connection forward. But, you know, we went back-to-back against North and Melbourne. That game against Melbourne, we all maybe... You know, I certainly thought, okay, this could be it, we're back. Only for us to certainly not be back. So I'm not gonna ride the emotion too high on this one. I'm gonna wait to see.
Yeah, but the thing is to be so frivolous with your emotion that it doesn't mean anything.
Okay, well, sure, then we're fucking back.
It was funny though, because like watching last night. So this is Monday morning. So watching Carlton and Essendon, I messaged you and said, like, man, Essendon are playing absolutely dreadful. And I think that it kind of dawned on me the frustration that we have with our team is that they can play so well. And like, if Essendon have been playing, because I haven't watched a lot of Essendon because I've watched funnily enough, I watched quite a lot of football this year, but I haven't watched a lot of Essendon.
Yeah.
But if they play that game style, man, I'm glad I did not watch Essendon, because we might be frustrated with how we're playing, but at least our ceilings tends to be a little bit higher. And like, if you'd showed me the Essendon Carlton game and shown me the Bulldogs Lions game and said, which one do you reckon is for second spot? Like, the quality of the game, the Bulldogs and the Lions one was for sure the better quality game. And that was the one that kind of I would have thought would have been for second spot. The other one I thought would have been a bum fight down bottom half of the table, just due to the quality of the game. Like, the skills and stuff are pretty
It was pretty high pressure game, I must say. It was, and both teams were fairly handball happy, and that, I think that just came from the immense amount of pressure. But yeah, I agree. It wasn't like I was. It
wasn't a pretty game of football to watch.
No, certainly wasn't.
Hey, but look, Carlton, they turned their they turned on their turnover game and kicked, I think, at least 8 goals before I turned it off from stoppage. So, warning signs.
Very much so. So are we back? Let's just, you know, the way this year's been unfolding so far, I'm certainly not prepared to say that we're back. Not yet, anyway.
I am.
I think we've got a game against the Saints, which we should win. Should win just due to, I guess, on paper, it's a game we should walk in and win. It's back at home at the Gabba as well, which, you know, used to mean something. It still does, but not to the effect it did last year. The game the following week, we go down to Adelaide and play Port. I think that'll be a real test to see where we're at. If we can stick it to Port, if we can get the win, bloody brilliant. If we can hang in for 4 quarters and show a decent effort, then that's, I'm not going to say just as good, but that'll be a real indication game of where we're at. I think that'll be the game for me.
Yeah. By the way, how's round 15? And we've been to Adelaide 3 times.
Yep, pretty good.
Brilliant. When you hear some of the clubs like Melbourne don't leave Victoria for the second half of the year, you're like, yeah, cool.
But no, that's the game I've got sort of marked down as all right. This will be the game to tell us where exactly we are and not seal our fate for the rest of the year. But if we can win that, I think we're in, like, finals are definitely back on. If we don't show up, if it's one of those games where we simply don't show up, like a Hawthorn or a Freo game or Port last year, then I think that'll tell us all we really need to know about the Brisbane Lions this year.
There's a lot of teams treading water around the 8, even up to second. Carlton were out of the 8 2 weeks ago.
Mm.
What is this season?
Well, like last week, Melbourne went. If they had won, they would have gone third. Instead, they dropped down to 10th. So, yeah, it's definitely one of those seasons. And I
just want to get out of this weird like pervert looking in. Like just win a couple more games. How about Hawthorn? What a team!
Yeah, good on them.
The Rat Pack.
Yeah.
They've got 5 from 6.
And the one they dropped was basically unlosable.
2 goals in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Nah, like Hawthorn. Really love what Sam Mitchell's doing down there. So, yeah, good on him.
4D chess is really a pisser, isn't it?
Yeah. All right, well, that is it for questions. Feel free at any time to shoot us through questions you want us to chat about on the show. You can get in touch via any social media or send us an email, blfancast@gmail.com. This has been a fun podcast. It's been a lengthy one, but it's been great to have a chat about a really good win against the Bulldogs. So, bloody brilliant.
Yeah, there's nothing weird that I've got to talk about this week, so good.
It's good. If you've made it this far, thank you, by the way. All the podcasts are now on our YouTube channel as well, in video form. So if for some reason you want to go back through the archives and relive that loss against Freo, it's there for you.
We need to do a supercut of like dumb stuff I've said. Bring back like the ship of Theseus, the Jack Gunston thing, various facial expressions that I'm doing when you're not paying attention to things. Did you do your homework last week?
I didn't. No, I forgot.
Yeah. Funny.
But it is all there for you on YouTube. We have decided to pack up the Patreon, and to be fair, we didn't probably promote it as much as we could have or should have. It just wasn't gaining the interest. So you win, folks. It's all there for you on YouTube.
Yeah, I suppose it's more just like, well, what do we have to offer?
Yeah.
Nothing.
No.
Like I got shit to do. I can't be like doing extra content. I'm not some sort of mad YouTube Zoomer that's like cultivated a career in high school on this like forward-thinking platform. No chance. So we need to get a buy us a coffee thing because, man, I need a coffee. It's early morning here.
One thing that we have got going, though, is we will have a double pass to the Brisbane and Sydney game to give away.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I managed to secure a double premium pass for that one, so stay tuned for that. We'll keep you updated on our socials about how you may be able to win a double pass to Brisbane and Sydney, which, depending on how we go over the next couple of weeks, could be a bloody great game, or it could be one you want to stay home for.
Nah, you want to go to that. We match up surprisingly well against Sydney. Calling it early.
Okay, lovely. All right, well, that'll just about wrap things up for us. St Kilda on Friday at the Gabba. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it is a decent game of footy to watch because you don't say that often about St Kilda games.